a first-class ticket, a 5-star trip to London. For Dr. Marcus Reed and his wife Zara, it was supposed to be a celebration. But when they reached the gate, one security officer saw their success not as earned, but as a fraud. He tore their bags apart, called them thieves, and tried to put them in handcuffs, all while 100 people watched. But he made one mistake. He had no idea who he was talking to, or who was walking up right behind him. What happens next isn't just a reversal. It's a lesson in karma so severe it would end up 6 months later in a hospital room, with that same officer on his knees begging for his own son's life. The air in John F. Kennedy International Airport's Terminal 4 was a familiar, humming chaos. It was the sound of 1,000 journeys beginning and ending simultaneously, a symphony of rolling luggage wheels on polished terrazzo, staccato announcements of flight delays, and the murmur of a dozen languages converging in the food court. For Dr. Marcus Reed and his wife, Zara, it was white noise. They moved through the terminal with the easy, unhurried grace of seasoned travelers. Marcus, 42, possessed a stillness that was almost magnetic, a calm he had cultivated over 15 years as one of the country's preeminent cardiac surgeons. His hands, which had meticulously repaired hundreds of human hearts, now rested lightly on the handle of his sleek, black roller bag. Beside him, Zara Reed, a year his junior, was his perfect contrast. Where Marcus was calm, Zara was kinetic. She was the founder and CEO of a high-flying data security firm, a woman who spoke with decisive clarity and moved like she was already 3 steps ahead of everyone else. They were a power couple in the truest sense, though they'd laugh at the term. To them, they were just Marcus and Zara, navigating a life they had built from scratch. Today, they were navigating the path to Gate B26. "I am telling you," Zara was saying, tapping a new notification on her phone. "If my dev team pushes that patch without my final sign-off, I will fly back from London, just to personally throttle them." Marcus chuckled, his voice a low, smooth baritone. "Honey, you are officially on vacation. This is our anniversary trip and your keynote at the London Tech Summit. You are not allowed to throttle anyone until after the cocktail reception." "Fine," she sighed, slipping the phone into her designer handbag. "But I reserve the right to be stressed about it." She leaned her head on his shoulder for a brief second. "God, I need this break. I need you. I need that flatbed seat, and about 3 of those little champagne bottles." "Dr. Reed, Mrs. Reed," Marcus said, playing the part of a flight attendant. "Your chariot awaits. British Airways 178, Priority 1. They had earned this. Every late night, every missed dinner, every sacrificed weekend. Their success was a fortress they had built brick by brick. They were dressed in what they called Comfort Plus. Zara in a high-end linen tracksuit and pristine white sneakers. Marcus in dark jeans, a soft cashmere sweater, and a watch that was a quiet testament to his success. They looked, to anyone who cared to look, like what they were: wealthy, successful, and in love. But as they approached the bustling gate area for BA 178, the atmosphere shifted. It was a subtle change, the kind they had felt 1,000 times before. It was the way the other passengers in the Priority 1 line, mostly older, white and suited, did a fractional double-take. It was the lingering gaze that assessed their clothes, their luggage, their right to be in that line. It was the institutional friction of being a black couple in a space that still, subconsciously or not, coded for white. They ignored it, as they always did. They presented their passports and glossy first-class boarding passes to the gate agent, a woman named Brenda with tired eyes and a tight perm, who scanned them without a word. "Enjoy your flight," she said mechanically, handing them back. They stepped forward, ready to walk down the jet bridge, when a new voice, sharp and laced with unearned authority, cut through the din. "Hold it. Right there." Marcus and Zara stopped it. A man had stepped directly into their path, blocking the entrance to the jet bridge. He was a contract security officer, not TSA, but one of the airport's private patrol units. His uniform was a size too tight, pulling across his stomach. His name tag read, R. Miller. Officer Robert Rob Miller was having a bad day, but that was true of most days. He was 47, divorced, and drowning in child support payments for a son he rarely saw. He saw the world from a foxhole of resentment. He saw the pilots, striding by with their flyboy arrogance, and the business travelers in their tailored suits, sipping $18 cocktails while he was stuck on his feet for 8 hours. He felt invisible, a cog in a machine that didn't respect him. His job was his only kingdom, and his power was absolute, if small. He didn't just scan for threats. He scanned for people who, in his mind, didn't belong. And when he saw Marcus and Zara, with their expensive bags, their easy confidence, and their priority one tickets, something in him curdled. No way, he thought. Not them. They were too young, too polished, and too black to be in first class without some kind of catch. They had to be fakes. Athletes, maybe, or rappers. But the man looked like a professor, and the woman looked like a lawyer. The quiet, confident kind of success was the type Miller despised the most. It felt like a personal insult. "Hold on," he repeated, louder this time. Marcus, his hand still on his luggage, kept his voice level. "Is there a problem, officer?" "I'll be the judge of that," Miller said, puffing out his chest. He looked past them at the gate agent. "Brenda, did you check these?" Brenda, startled, nodded. "Yes, Officer Miller. They're valid. They scanned green." Miller scoffed, a wet, dismissive sound. "The system can be fooled. Let me see them." He snapped his fingers at Marcus. "Tickets, passports, now." This was not standard procedure. They were past the gate agent at the door of the plane. Marcus and Zara exchanged a look. It was the look that said, "Here we go." Calmly, Marcus handed over their documents. Zara crossed her arms, her jaw tightening. Miller took the glossy cardstock tickets and held them up to the fluorescent light, as if expecting to find a watermark. He thumbed through Marcus's passport, then Zara's. "Dr. Marcus Reed," Miller read, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "What are you a doctor of? Spinning records?" The line behind them had stopped. People were watching. "I'm a cardiac surgeon," Marcus said, his voice dropping a full octave. The calm was still there, but it was thinner now, brittle. "A heart surgeon." "Right," Miller smirked. He looked at Zara's. "And you?" "Zara Reed." "What do you do?" "I own a company," Zara said, her voice sharp as broken glass. "Not that it is remotely your business. Is there a reason you're detaining us, officer, or do you just enjoy the show?" The jab hit its mark. Miller's face flushed a dull, angry red. He was losing control of his audience. He needed to re-establish his dominance. "The reason," he said, his voice rising, "is that I have strong reason to believe these documents are fraudulent." A collective gasp rippled through the passengers. "Fraudulent?" Marcus echoed, his own disbelief warring with a rising tide of fury. "On what basis?" "On the basis that I said so," Miller snapped. "These first-class tickets are two of the most expensive on the plane, and you two, well, you don't fit the profile." It was out. "The quiet part," said loud. "Don't fit the profile?" Zara repeated, her voice dangerously low. "Officer, I highly recommend you choose your next words with extreme care." "I'm calling it in," Miller said, ignoring her. He grabbed his shoulder radio. Yeah, this is Miller at B26. I've got a situation. 2 individuals, a black male and female, attempting to board with suspected fraudulent Priority 1 documents. Possible document theft. I need backup. He looked at them, a cruel smile of triumph on his face. You're not going anywhere. The word backup echoed in the enclosed space of the gate, silencing the ambient chatter. Passengers who had been pretending not to watch were now filming openly with their phones. The gate agent, Brenda, looked like she wanted to be swallowed by the floor. She busied herself with some meaningless paperwork, refusing to make eye contact with anyone. "Officer," Marcus said, taking a step forward. He held his hands up, palms slightly out, a universal gesture of de-escalation that he, as a black man, had learned to adopt far too often. "Let's be rational. You can call the airline. You can rescan the tickets. You can look up my medical license or my wife's company. We are who we say we are. This is a misunderstanding." "Oh, I understand perfectly," Miller sneered. He was high on the attention, on the power. He had a captive audience, and he had 2 suspects who were clearly wealthy and arrogant. He was going to bring them down a peg. "I understand that people like you think you can buy your way into anything. Flash some cash, get some fake tickets, and walk on board like you own the place. Not on my watch." "People like us," Zara shot back, her professional calm shattering. "You mean successful? You mean black? Which one is it, officer? Say it." "Ma'am, you're becoming hysterical. That's another sign of guilt," Miller said, pointing a thick finger at her. "You need to calm down before I'm forced to detain you for assaulting an officer." "I haven't touched you. You're being aggressive." "This is insane," Marcus said, trying to pull Zara back gently. He turned back to Miller. "You cannot keep us here. Our flight is boarding. You are violating our rights." "I'm protecting this flight," Miller retorted. He unclipped a pair of zip-tie cuffs from his belt. The plastic rattled ominously. "Now I'm going to ask you one more time. Step aside, over against that wall, and I'm going to have to ask you to submit to a search of your carry-on luggage." "What?" Marcus was stunned. "You're not TSA. You have no authority to search our bags without probable cause, and not fitting the profile is not probable cause. Suspected document fraud is," Miller lied, his voice booming. "Now, are you going to comply, or am I going to have to restrain you?" The situation was spiraling, turning into a nightmare. They were going to miss their flight. They were going to be arrested. All their success, their education, their money. It was all meaningless in the face of one man with a cheap uniform and a deep-seated hatred. "Fine," Marcus said, his voice hollow. He knew this game. If he resisted, it would be a felony. If he was arrested, even if the charges were dropped, it would be on his record. It could affect his medical license. He had to submit. He had to swallow the poison. He looked at Zara. "Honey, do as he says. It's okay. We'll sort this out later." The rage in Zara's eyes was replaced by a cold, terrifying focus. "Oh, we will sort this out, Marcus. Believe me." They moved to the wall, next to a "Visit London" poster. Miller, with a grunt of satisfaction, grabbed Marcus's roller bag first. He threw it on the floor and unzipped it with a violent rip. "Hey!" Zara protested. Miller ignored her. He began pulling items out, one by one, and throwing them onto the dirty airport carpet. A DOP kit, a pair of running shoes, a stack of files. "What's this?" Miller said, picking up a thick-bound medical journal. The cover read, "The Journal of Thoracic and Cardiovascular Surgery." He flipped it open. "Light reading. You got a lot of big words in here, Doctor." He tossed it aside. It landed with a heavy thwump. Next, he grabbed Zara's carry-on, a stylish but practical bag. He dumped its contents unceremoniously: a high-spec laptop, a tangle of chargers, a makeup bag, and a leather-bound folio. "This laptop's probably hot," Miller mused to the crowd. He picked up the folio. "What's in here? More fake documents?" "Those are confidential contracts for my company," Zara yelled, lunging forward. "Don't touch me," Miller shouted, shoving her back. Marcus caught her. "Zara, don't. He wants this. He's baiting you." Just then, 2 junior security officers arrived, jogging up to the gate. They were young, barely out of their teens, and looked bewildered. "Officer Miller? You called for backup?" one of them asked. "Yeah," Miller said, breathing heavily, enjoying the adrenaline. "Got these 2 trying to sneak into first class. They're getting aggressive. I want you to detain them. Cuff the man. He's resisting." "I am not resisting," Marcus said, his voice finally cracking with the sheer injustice of it. "We are the victims here." The young officers looked at each other, then at the scattered, expensive contents of the bags on the floor, then at the well-dressed couple, and then at Miller, who was clearly enjoying himself far too much. They hesitated. "What are you waiting for?" Miller barked. "I gave you an order. Cuff him." The young officer reached for his own zip ties, his hand trembling. He stepped toward Marcus. "Sir, I have to ask you to put your hands behind your back." Marcus Reed, a man who saved lives for a living, a man who commanded the respect of an entire hospital, closed his eyes. He felt the cold, familiar sting of humiliation. He was powerless. He slowly, agonizingly, began to turn around. "No," Zara whispered, tears of pure rage filling her eyes. "Marcus, no. It's the only way, Z," he whispered back. "We fight this later." "Not here." The officer fumbled with the cuff. Miller watched, his arms crossed, a smug, victorious smile plastered on his face. He had won. He had put these people in their place. And it was at that exact moment a new voice, crisp, authoritative, and laced with a sharp British accent, cut through the tension like a surgeon's scalpel. "Officer Miller, just what in the bloody hell do you think you are doing?" The voice commanded immediate attention. It wasn't loud, but it had a natural projection, a quality of command that silenced everyone, including Miller. He turned, his smug expression faltering, replaced by confusion. Walking briskly toward the gate were 2 people. The first was a man in his late 50s, distinguished and lean, with silver hair and the impeccable, gold-trimmed black uniform of a British Airways captain. His face was a mask of controlled fury. Beside him was a woman in a sharp, navy blue BA executive suit. Her name tag identified her as Sarah Jenkins, Regional Director of Operations. She was holding a tablet and looked, if possible, even angrier than the captain. Miller, suddenly on the defensive, tried to regain his footing. "Captain, ma'am, this is a secure area. These 2 individuals are being detained for document fraud." Sarah Jenkins didn't even look at Miller. Her eyes were fixed on the scene. The scattered luggage, the medical journal on the floor, the young officer about to cuff Marcus. Her face went from pale with anger to a deep, horrified crimson. "Captain Finch," she said, her voice shaking. "Is that—" Captain Alistair Finch stepped forward, his eyes locking on Marcus. "Dr. Reed?" he asked, his voice softening immediately. Marcus, his hands still halfway behind his back, turned. "Captain." "Yes, I'm Marcus Reed." Captain Finch strode forward and pushed the young officer's hand away. "Stand down, son. Right now." He then turned to Marcus and, to the astonishment of the entire gate, extended his own hand. "Dr. Reed, I'm Captain Alistair Finch. I was just coming to greet you personally. It is an absolute honor to have you on my flight." Marcus, bewildered, shook his hand. "Thank you, Captain, but we seem to be having a disagreement with this officer." Sarah Jenkins finally turned her gaze to Miller. It was a look so cold, so venomous, it could have frozen water. "Officer Miller," she said, her voice dangerously quiet. "You said document fraud." "Yes, ma'am," Miller stammered, his bravado evaporating. These tickets are first class. I was running a check." "A check?" Sarah repeated. She stepped over the scattered clothes and picked up the folio Miller had thrown. "You mean you were harassing our passengers?" She looked at Miller as if he were a particularly disgusting insect. "Officer, do you have any idea, even the smallest, most infinitesimal clue, who this is?" He's a suspect," Miller said weakly. "This," Captain Finch interrupted, his voice booming into the silence, "is Dr. Marcus Reed. He is, for your information, the man flying to London at the personal, urgent request of our airline's chairman, Sir Richard Bromley." A new wave of gasps. The phones were all pointed at Miller now. "That's not all," Sarah Jenkins added, her voice a whip crack. "Dr. Reed isn't just a guest. He is flying to London to perform a highly complex, life-saving cardiac procedure tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. She paused, letting the weight of the words sink in. "His patient," she said, enunciating every syllable, "is Sir Richard's 12-year-old son." The silence that followed was absolute. It was so total, so heavy, that the distant sound of another plane taking off seemed deafening. Miller's face was no longer red. It was a waxy, sickly white. His jaw worked, but no sound came out. Zara Reed, who had been silent for several minutes, finally spoke. Her voice was pure ice. "And this man," she said, pointing a shaking finger at Miller, "called my husband a liar. He called him a thief. He dumped our bags on the floor, threatened to arrest me for assault, and was about to put my husband, the surgeon you flew here to save a child's life, in handcuffs." She took a step toward Miller, who instinctively recoiled. "He said we didn't fit the profile. He said people like us buy fake tickets. He did this in front of 100 people. He did this while your gate agent, Brenda, stood there and watched." Brenda visibly flinched, looking at the floor as if she could will it to open. Sarah Jenkins's eyes narrowed. "Officer Miller, you have not just humiliated two of our most valued passengers. You have not just engaged in what is, very clearly, an act of overt racial discrimination. You have actively, and with malice, jeopardized a time-sensitive medical procedure that is the personal priority of the chairman of this airline." She held up her tablet. "I have been on a live video call with Sir Richard's team for the last 10 minutes, coordinating Dr. Reed's arrival. They, and I, have just heard this entire exchange." Miller looked as if he'd been shot. "Give me your badge," Sarah commanded. "What?" "Ma'am, I work for Port Authority." "You work for airport security, which is contracted by this airport, which services my airline," Jenkins snapped. "You are on airport property, and I am the ranking airline official on site. You have just created a multi-million-dollar liability for everyone involved. Your supervisor, David Harrison, is on his way. But as of this moment, you are trespassing at this gate. Give me your badge. Now." Numbly, his hands shaking so violently he could barely unclip it, Robert Miller handed his badge to Sarah Jenkins. "You," she said to the two junior officers, "go back to your posts. Your superior will be debriefed. You," she pointed to Brenda, "you are on immediate suspension. Pack your things." Brenda burst into tears. "And you," she said, her voice dropping, turning back to Miller, "get out. Don't say another word. Get out of my sight. Airport police will meet you at the main office." Miller, speechless, his entire world collapsing, turned and walked away. He didn't run. He walked with the slow, shuffling gait of a man who had just been publicly executed. The crowd of passengers parted for him, their faces a mixture of pity, disgust, and contempt. Sarah Jenkins watched him go before turning back to the Reeds. Her professional fury dissolved instantly into profound, genuine remorse. "Dr. Reed, Mrs. Reed." She was actually trembling. There are no words. Apology isn't big enough. What you have just endured, it's unforgivable." Marcus finally let out the breath he felt he'd been holding for 10 minutes. His entire body was vibrating with adrenaline and suppressed rage. "No," he said, his voice ragged. "It's not." He knelt, his hands shaking, and began to pick up his scattered belongings. The medical journal, his clothes. Captain Finch and Sarah Jenkins immediately knelt to help, a shocking sight for the remaining passengers. "Please, Doctor, let us," Captain Finch insisted. "With respect, Captain," Marcus said, his voice tight. "I'd just like to get my things. This humiliation. It's done." Zara was filming again. Not the crowd, not the airline staff. She was filming her husband, a world-renowned surgeon, on his hands and knees on the filthy floor of Gate B26, picking up his underwear, while a B-list actress in the priority line watched with horrified fascination. "This is the reality," Zara said, her voice thick with emotion, but her hand steady. "This is what not fitting the profile looks like." The jet bridge felt like a tunnel to another world. Captain Finch and Sarah Jenkins personally escorted Marcus and Zara onto the aircraft, carrying their hastily repacked bags. The flight attendants at the door, who had clearly been briefed, greeted them with looks of profound sympathy. "Dr. Reed, Mrs. Reed, welcome aboard," the purser said, her voice soft. "Please let me show you to your seats. 1A and 1K. The first-class cabin was quiet. The few passengers already seated had either seen the commotion or heard the whispers. As Marcus and Zara settled in, a flight attendant appeared instantly with 2 glasses of Dom Perignon. "Miss Jenkins insisted, with her deepest compliments," the attendant whispered. Marcus took the glass, but his hand was still shaking. He looked at the bubbles, but all he could see was Miller's smirking face. The humiliation was a metallic taste in his mouth that no amount of expensive champagne could wash away. Zara was on her phone, her thumbs flying across the screen. "I'm sending the video to our lawyer. I'm sending it to the New York Times. I'm sending it to the Port Authority's entire board of directors, whose names I am currently looking up. And I am posting this to every social media platform I have." "Zara, wait," Marcus said, putting his hand on hers. "Wait for what, Marcus? To sort it out later?" "This is later. That man, that animal, put his hands on our things. He was going to put his hands on you. No. The world is going to see exactly who Robert Miller is." "I know," Marcus said, his voice heavy. "I know. But I have a surgery in the morning. A child's life. I need to get my head right." He massaged his temples. His hands, his precious $1,000,000 hands, were still unsteady. "I can't go into an 8-hour pediatric heart operation fueled by this rage. I need to compartmentalize, just for 24 hours. Can we just be for a minute?" Zara looked at his face, at the profound weariness that had settled over him, extinguishing the earlier excitement. She saw the surgeon, the man who had to shelve his own trauma to save someone else. She put her phone down. You're right. Him first." She grabbed his hand. "Okay. Deep breaths, my love. Let's get you to London. We can burn the world down tomorrow." The plane door closed. Sarah Jenkins and Captain Finch came to their seats one last time. "Doctor," Captain Finch said, "I have personally cleared our flight plan. We have a tailwind. I will make up every second of this delay, I promise you. You will be on the ground at Heathrow on time." "And Dr. Reed," Sarah added, "the airline has arranged for a private car service to meet you on the tarmac. You won't even have to see the terminal. A police escort will take you directly to your hotel. Sir Richard's team is handling everything. As for the incident, our legal team is already involved. Mr. Miller has been detained by airport police, and I can assure you, British Airways will be pressing for his permanent termination and, if possible, criminal charges." "Thank you, Ms. Jenkins," Marcus said, finally meeting her eyes. "Thank you, Captain. We appreciate it." As they walked away, the plane began its pushback. The flight was, by all accounts, perfect. The service was flawless. The flight attendants were sensitive and deferential to a fault. They were offered anything they wanted: more champagne, fine food, sleeping aids. But they barely spoke. Zara pretended to work, but stared at the same email for an hour. Marcus tried to review his surgical notes, but the words blurred. He couldn't shake the feeling of the rough carpet under his hands, the laughter he thought he heard from the crowd, the smug look on Miller's face. He had been reduced to a stereotype. In that moment, he wasn't Dr. Reed, one of the top 5 surgeons in his field. He was just a black man in a place he didn't belong. The incident became a news story, just as Zara had intended. A passenger's video, clearer and more damning than Zara's, went viral before they even landed. It had audio. "You don't fit the profile. I'm a cardiac surgeon." "A heart surgeon. Right, and I'm the Pope." The public backlash was instantaneous and overwhelming. The Port Authority of New York and New Jersey was forced to issue a public apology within hours. Robert Miller was fired so fast it made headlines. He was named, his photo was leaked. He became the face of airport racism, a momentary digital villain for the 24-hour news cycle. Marcus and Zara tried to ignore it. The surgery was a resounding success. The chairman's son, against all odds, was stable and recovering within 48 hours. Sir Richard Bromley, a man who commanded empires, was reduced to a weeping, grateful father. He offered Marcus anything: a bonus, a new clinic in London, his private jet. Marcus respectfully declined. "Just make sure what happened at that gate never, ever happens to anyone else." The lawsuit was quiet, professional, and devastating. Zara's legal team, combined with the full weight of British Airways, settled with the Port Authority for an undisclosed, and rumoured to be astronomical, sum. The Reeds donated every penny to a fund for racial justice advocacy and scholarships for black medical students. Robert Miller, meanwhile, disappeared. He lost his job. He lost his pending pension. He was toxic, unhireable. The news cycle moved on. The world forgot his name. But karma, unlike the internet, has a very, very long memory. The rain outside the small ground-floor apartment in Queens was relentless, turning the grey afternoon into a premature twilight. The apartment itself felt damp, saturated with the smell of old food and new desperation. Robert "Rob" Miller sat at a wobbly Formica kitchen table, staring at a stack of envelopes. They were all red. Past due. Final notice. Eviction warning. He was a different man. The smugness was gone, hollowed out, and replaced by a gaunt, simmering resentment. He had lost his job at the airport, and the notoriety of the viral video meant he couldn't even get a job as a mall cop. His face was too recognizable. He was currently working a cash-in-hand night job, illegally, loading trucks in a non-union warehouse in the Bronx. It paid pennies, and it was breaking his back. His ex-wife, Karen, had taken him to court for missed child support, and the judge, who had clearly seen the video, had thrown the book at him. His wages were garnished, but there were no wages to garnish. "Rob, are you just going to sit there?" Karen Miller stood in the doorway. She was not his ex-wife. She was his current wife. The stress of the last 6 months had aged her a decade. She had stuck by him, not out of love, but out of a shared, sinking inertia. "What do you want me to do, Karen? Want me to magic some money out of thin air?" he snapped. "I'm doing what I can." "No, you're not," she cried, her voice cracking. "You're sitting there hating them. You're still blaming those people at the airport. This is your fault, Rob. Your temper, your thing." "My thing," he said, standing up, the chair scraping loudly. "My thing was procedure. I was doing my job. Your job was to check for security threats, not to play God with anyone who looked different from you. You had to be the big man, and look where it got us. We're about to be homeless, Rob." A small, weak voice came from the bedroom. "Mum, Dad, are you fighting again?" They both froze. The anger drained from them, replaced by a shared, familiar ache of terror. Josh Miller, 12 years old, stood in the hallway, leaning against the frame. He was pale, his lips tinged with blue. He wore a t-shirt that hung on his skeletal frame. Josh was the center of their universe, and their universe was collapsing. He had a rare congenital heart defect, anomalous aortic origin of a coronary artery, or AAOCA. It was a ticking time bomb. His heart wasn't getting enough blood, and any strenuous activity could kill him. He had been on a waiting list for a specialist surgery for 2 years, but with Rob's job loss came the loss of his decent health insurance. They were on a state-funded plan now, and the specialists who could perform the complex arterial unroofing procedure were few and far between, and none of them seemed to be in their new, terrible network. "No, baby, no," Karen said, rushing to him, feeling his forehead. "We're just talking. Go back to bed. You're cold." "I'm always cold," Josh said simply. As Karen tucked him back in, Rob sank back into his chair. The fight gone. He wasn't just a failure. He was a fraud. He was the big man who couldn't even keep his own son safe. Karen returned to the kitchen, her face streaked with tears. She picked up the phone. "I'm calling the hospital again. I don't care if I've called them every day this week. They have to have an opening. He's getting worse, Rob." She dialed, her fingers trembling. She went through the automated menus, the hold music, the indifferent scheduling nurse. Rob listened, his head in his hands. "Yes, I'm holding," Karen said, her voice tight. "Yes, it's about Josh Miller. Miller. Date of birth, March 14th. "Yes, I know. I know he's on the wait list. I'm just calling to see if there have been any cancellations, anything at all." There was a long pause. Rob watched his wife's face. Her expression went from desperate to confused. "What? Oh, yes," she said, her voice suddenly full of a breathless, shocking hope. "Yes, we can be there. When? Tomorrow. Yes, absolutely. We'll be there." She hung up the phone, her hand flying to her mouth. Tears streamed down her face, but this time they were different. "Rob," she whispered. "Oh my God, Rob." What is it?" he said, standing up. It's a miracle," she sobbed. "A new surgeon. He just transferred to Mount Sinai from a fellowship in London. He's reviewed Josh's file. He's the best. He's a specialist in this exact procedure. He had a cancellation for a consultation tomorrow morning. He's going to take the case." For the first time in 6 months, a flicker of genuine hope lit Rob Miller's dead eyes. "A new doctor? Who? What's his name?" I think she said Dr. M. Reed," Karen said, wiping her eyes. "Dr. Marcus Reed. They say he's a genius, Rob. He's a miracle. He's going to save our son." The name hit Robert Miller with the force of a physical blow. It wasn't a name. It was a judgment. He stumbled to his beat-up laptop, his hands shaking so badly he could barely type. He searched, "Dr. Marcus Reed, Mount Sinai." The screen filled with the hospital's official bio. A new head of pediatric cardiac surgery. A man with a kind, professional smile. It was him. It was the fake surgeon, the man he had humiliated, the man he had tried to arrest. "Rob?" Karen asked, her joy fading at the sight of his face. "Rob, what's wrong? You look like you've seen a ghost." Rob Miller stared at the screen, at the face of the man from the airport. A cold, dreadful certainty settled in his stomach. This wasn't a miracle. This was a reckoning. The next morning, the sterile, antiseptic smell of the Mount Sinai Pediatric Cardiac Wing felt suffocating to Rob Miller. Every squeak of a sneaker on the polished floor, every cheerful cartoon mural on the wall, felt like a personal accusation. He sat in the waiting room, sandwiched between Karen and Josh. Karen was a bundle of nervous energy, clutching a folder of Josh's medical records. She had spent the night researching Dr. Reed, and her hope was now shining with an almost religious fervor. "He trained at Johns Hopkins and the Cleveland Clinic, Rob. He invented a new type of valve-sparing technique. He's the one. I just know it." Josh was quiet, listening to music on his mum's phone, oblivious. Rob hadn't slept. He had spent the night in a cold sweat, cycling through panic, denial, and a new, unfamiliar emotion. Shame. It was a thick, heavy blanket, and it was choking him. He had considered telling Karen. He had opened his mouth a dozen times. "Honey, there's something about this doctor." But how? How could he tell her that he had, through his own blind arrogance and prejudice, personally tried to destroy the one man on earth who could save their son? How could he watch the last glimmer of hope die in her eyes, all because of him? So he said nothing. He prayed, with a desperate, bargaining intensity, that the doctor wouldn't remember him. "It was 6 months ago. He's famous. He sees thousands of people. I was just a stupid guy in a uniform. He won't remember. Please, God, don't let him remember." "Miller? Josh Miller?" a nurse called. The family stood. Rob felt his legs go weak. The walk down the hallway to the consultation room felt like a mile. The nurse, kind and efficient, took Josh's weight and blood pressure. "Dr. Reed will be with you in just a moment. He's just finishing with another patient." She led them into a small, windowless office. "Have a seat." They sat, the three of them. The silence was deafening. Karen bounced her knee. Rob stared at a diagram of a human heart on the wall, its arteries and ventricles a mocking, complex map he couldn't understand. 10 minutes passed. 20. Each second was an agony for Rob. He was a man on death row, waiting for the executioner. Finally, the door opened. Dr. Marcus Reed entered, followed by a resident, and, to Rob's absolute horror, a second person. It was his wife, Zara. She wasn't in a linen tracksuit this time. She was in a dark, impeccably tailored suit, holding a leather portfolio. She looked every inch the CEO she was. Marcus Reed looked the same. His face was calm, professional. He smiled warmly at Josh, then at Karen. "Mrs. Miller? Josh? I'm Dr. Reed. It's a pleasure to meet you." He shook Karen's hand, then Josh's. Karen was beaming. "Doctor, thank you. Thank you so much for seeing us. We've been so worried." "That's what we're here for," Marcus said, his voice the same smooth, reassuring baritone. Then his eyes moved to the third person in the room. The man sitting stiffly, his face ashen, his eyes wide with terror. The smile on Dr. Reed's face didn't falter, but his eyes held a sudden, sharp clarity, a flicker of recognition. It wasn't the "I know you" of a doctor, it was the "I know you" of a witness. He held his gaze for 1, 2, 3 long seconds. Rob Miller's world stopped. He remembers. Marcus slowly turned his gaze from Rob to his wife. Zara, who had been watching the interaction, her own face a mask of professional neutrality, gave a tiny, almost imperceptible nod. Karen, oblivious, looked between them. "I'm sorry. Do you two know each other?" Rob Miller finally broke. A sound, a choked, strangled sob, escaped his throat. He couldn't speak. He couldn't breathe. Zara Reed spoke, her voice flat and clear, as if stating a business fact. "Yes, we do. My husband and I know Mr. Miller." She looked directly at Karen, her gaze not unkind, but unflinching. "My name is Zara Reed. I sit on this hospital's board of directors." She paused. "The last time we saw your husband, he was working security at JFK. He was accusing my husband, Dr. Reed, of being a common criminal. He called him a liar, emptied our luggage on the floor, and tried to have him arrested for having a fraudulent first-class ticket, because, in Mr. Miller's words, he didn't fit the profile." The blood drained from Karen's face. She turned to her husband, her mouth open in a perfect O of horror. "Rob?" she whispered. What is she talking about? The video? The man in that? Rob, that was you?" Rob couldn't look at her. He could only look at Dr. Reed. He slid out of his chair and onto his knees. It wasn't a conscious movement. His legs simply gave out. "Please," he wept, the word torn from him. "Please, doctor, I'm my son. Please." He didn't do anything. He was a pathetic, broken creature, kneeling on the linoleum floor of a hospital, begging for his child's life. "I didn't know," he sobbed. "I didn't know who you were. I was a fool. I was just... Please, don't punish him. Don't let my boy die because of me. Please, I'll do anything. I'll give you anything. I have nothing. But Please." Karen was openly sobbing now, her hands over her mouth, the full, crushing weight of their new reality falling on her. Josh, terrified, just looked at his father. "Dad, what's wrong? Why are you on the floor?" The room was silent, save for Miller's desperate, gasping pleas. Marcus Reed watched him. His face was unreadable. He felt no pity. He felt no anger. The rage from that day had been processed, filed away, and turned into action. What he felt now was a cold, profound sense of consequence. He looked at Zara. She looked at him. Finally, Marcus spoke. His voice was not the warm greeting of a doctor. It was the clear, cold voice of a judge. "Get up, Mr. Miller. You are frightening your son." Rob flinched and scrambled back into his chair, wiping his face on his sleeve. Dr. Reed sat down opposite them. He opened Josh's file. "When your son's file landed on my desk," Marcus said, his eyes on the paperwork, "I recognized the name. I had a choice. I could have passed it on. I'm a very busy man. I could have said I was not available. I could have put him at the bottom of a list. I could have, as you did, judged the entire family by the actions of one." He looked up, pinning Rob with his gaze. "I could have treated you with the exact same measure of mercy and humanity that you showed my wife and me." Rob's breath hitched. "Please, but I am not you, Mr. Miller," Marcus said. "I am a doctor, and my oath is to my patient. My patient is Josh. He is 12 years old, and he has a complex arterial anomaly that, if left untreated, will kill him. He turned his full attention to Karen and Josh, his voice softening just enough to be reassuring. The unroofing procedure is delicate. We have to create a new, wider opening for the artery. But I have done this over 70 times. My team is the best in the country. The risk is not zero, but the outcome, in my hands, is excellent. He looked at Josh. It's a scary thing, Josh. But it's my job to fix broken hearts, and yours is one I can fix. Josh, still confused, nodded. Okay. Marcus stood up. My nurse will schedule you for pre-op. We'll aim for surgery within the week. I will clear my schedule. Karen stood, her body shaking with relief. Thank you, she whispered. Thank you, God. Thank you, Dr. Reed. I'm not finished, Marcus said. He turned back to Rob Miller. The coldness was back. I will save your son's life. I will use every ounce of my skill and training to give him a future. And you will have to live with that. You will live every single day for the rest of your life, knowing that your son's heart is beating only because of the grace of a man you saw as less than human. A man you tried to humiliate and destroy, all for the color of his skin. He stepped closer. You'll have to sit in that waiting room. You'll have to hand your child over to me. You will have to pray while I am in surgery, to a God you've clearly forgotten. And you'll have to pray for my hands, the hands you were ready to see in cuffs. He let the words hang. This, Marcus said, his voice quiet, is not forgiveness. This is justice. My nurse will see you out. He and Zara turned and walked out of the room, leaving the Miller family alone in the echoing silence. The day of the surgery was a grey, cold dawn. Rob and Karen sat in the surgical waiting area, a place of beige walls, uncomfortable chairs, and stale coffee. They hadn't spoken more than a few words in a week. The chasm between them was too wide, filled with Rob's shame and Karen's silent, incandescent rage. A nurse brought Josh out on a gurney. He looked small and afraid. It's okay, buddy, Rob said, his voice thick. You're going to be great. I love you, Mom. I love you, Dad, Josh whispered, as the anesthesia began to pull him under. They watched him be wheeled through the double doors, and then they were alone. For the next 8 hours, Rob Miller sat. He didn't read. He didn't drink the coffee. He just stared at the double doors. He was a man trapped in his own personal hell. Every time a doctor walked through, his heart seized. Every time, it was for someone else. He was forced to live out the scenario Marcus had described. He was praying. He was praying with a fervor he hadn't known he possessed. He was praying for the success, the skill, and the steadiness of Dr. Marcus Reed's hands. He was praying to the man he had wronged. He thought about that day, the arrogance, the pleasure he had taken in bringing them down. He had seen their nice clothes and their first-class tickets and felt cheated. He had wanted to hurt them, and he had. He had succeeded. Now that same man, that fake doctor, was holding his son's heart in his hands. The karma was so precise, so biblical, it was suffocating. It wasn't just that he'd been fired. It wasn't that he was broke and homeless. It was this. It was the agonizing 8-hour wait, knowing his son's life depended entirely on the professionalism and mercy of his victim. Finally, after an eternity, the double doors opened. Dr. Reed walked out. He had removed his mask. He looked exhausted but calm. Rob and Karen shot to their feet. Marcus walked over, pulling off his surgical cap. He looked at them, his face impassive. He did very well, Marcus said. Karen collapsed back into her chair, sobbing with relief. The anomaly was significant, but we were able to reconstruct the artery. The unroofing was a success. His blood flow is already 100% improved. He's on his way to recovery now. He'll be in the CVQ for a few days, but he's going to be fine. He'll be able to run. He'll be able to play sports. He has his life back. Rob Miller just stared at him. You did it. Yes, Marcus said. I did my job. He was about to turn away when Rob grabbed his arm. Not hard, but with a desperate, trembling grip. Doctor, Rob whispered, tears streaming down his face. How can I ever? Marcus looked down at the hand on his arm, then back at Miller's face. He didn't pull away. You can't, Marcus said, his voice devoid of anger, holding only a deep, profound weariness. You can't thank me. You can't repay me. That's the point. He gently removed his arm from Rob's grip. You want to do something? Live with this. Live with it every day. And when you see someone, anyone, who you think doesn't fit the profile, you remember this feeling. You remember this room. You remember my face. Dr. Reed looked one last time at the man who had tried to break him. The debt is paid, Mr. Miller. Your son is safe. But you are indebted. Forever. Marcus turned and walked away, his scrubs rustling as he went, leaving Robert Miller standing alone in the waiting room, a man saved by the very person he had tried to destroy. He had his son back, but he had lost his soul, only to have it shown to him, scarred and shriveled, by the man who had every right to let him perish. That was the real karma. And it was a life sentence. Robert Miller got his son back, but he lost everything else. His pride, his home, his identity. His true punishment isn't poverty. It's that every time his son laughs, every time he celebrates a birthday, every time Josh's heart beats strong and steady in his chest, Miller will be reminded that he owes that life to Dr. Marcus Reed. He is haunted and saved by the very man he profiled. This story is a brutal reminder that the people we dismiss, the profiles we create, have lives and purposes we cannot even imagine. The person you belittle today might be the only one who can save you tomorrow. If this story hit you as hard as it hit me, please hit that like button. It tells YouTube you want to see more content like this. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on all notifications so you never miss a story of justice and karma. Most importantly, share this video. Share it with anyone who needs to hear it, because you never, ever know who you're talking to. Thank you for watching.